My son texted me at 2 a.m. demanding $50,000 or I'm banned from Thanksgiving. My name is Stanley Thompson, and I just got the most heartbreaking message a father can receive. Bring $50K to the hospital gala or don't come at all. I can't afford to be embarrassed by you anymore. This is from my cardiac surgeon son. The same boy I worked 3 jobs to put through medical school. The kid I paid $300,000 for so he could graduate debt-free while his classmates drowned in loans. Now he's ashamed of his janitor father. He introduces me as a family friend to his girlfriend. Didn't invite me to his graduation. Acts like I'm some kind of charity case he has to manage. But here's what Mitchell doesn't know. His supposedly poor father has been building something massive. Something that would make every doctor at that fancy hospital gala bow their heads in respect. Hit subscribe because you're about to watch the most satisfying comeback in parenting history. Trust me, this gets good, because my ungrateful son just picked a fight with the wrong janitor. Let me paint you a picture of how invisible I'd become to my own son. 2 months ago, Mitchell graduated from his cardiac surgery residency. 7 years of training, finally over. The ceremony was at Kansas City's Crown Center. Beautiful venue. 500 guests in the ballroom. I wasn't invited, not to the ceremony, not to the dinner, not even told about it until I saw the photos on Facebook 3 days later. There's Mitchell in his white coat, surrounded by colleagues and their families, his medical school dean shaking his hand, other residents with their proud parents. I called him that night. "Hey son, saw your photos, congratulations." Long pause. "Thanks, Dad. It was just a small thing. Small thing. 7 years of training, the culmination of everything we'd worked for. Small thing." But that wasn't the moment that broke me. That came 2 weeks later. Mitchell invited me to dinner at the Capitol Grill. Said he wanted to celebrate properly. I put on my best shirt, the one I'd bought for his medical school graduation 6 years earlier. Still fit. The restaurant was the kind of place where they fold your napkin when you go to the bathroom, $40 steaks, wine list thicker than a medical textbook. Mitchell was already there when I arrived, sitting with a woman I'd never met. Blonde, elegant, definitely not someone who'd ever worried about rent money. "Dad," he said, standing up, "this is Amanda. Amanda, this is my father, Stanley." At least he said father. That was something. We sat down. I ordered the cheapest thing on the menu, a $28 chicken breast that cost more than I used to spend on groceries for a week. Amanda talked about her work at a marketing firm, her recent trip to Italy, her parents' lake house. "What do you do, Stanley?" she asked. Mitchell jumped in before I could answer. "Dad runs a small cleaning business, very local." The way he said local made it sound like a disease. Not, "My father built a successful company." Not, "He worked 3 jobs to put me through medical school." Just, "small cleaning business." As the dinner went on, I noticed how Mitchell kept steering the conversation away from me. When Amanda asked about my work, he changed the subject. When she mentioned family traditions, he talked about his future plans instead of our past. I excused myself to the bathroom, stood in that marble-tiled space looking at my reflection. My hands were clean, but I could still see the calluses. 27 years of night shifts, weekend dishwashing gigs, Uber driving between cleaning jobs. When I came back, they were talking about Thanksgiving plans. "We're thinking of hosting something elegant," Mitchell was saying. "My colleagues, some of Amanda's friends. Make it a real event." "That sounds wonderful," I said. Mitchell's smile got tight. "Actually, Dad, about that, we're trying to keep it professional. You understand?" I understood perfectly. That's when I started looking at the numbers differently. All those years of sacrifice, I'd kept meticulous records. Every payment, every investment, every dollar that went toward building his future. Mitchell knew I'd paid for medical school. He'd thanked me at graduation, but he thought I'd borrowed against my house, took out loans, scraped together money I didn't have. He had no idea what I'd actually been building. See, when you work cleaning contracts for 27 years, you learn things. You overhear conversations. You see financial documents left on desks. You understand how money really moves in this city. And when you're too tired to spend money on yourself, when every extra dollar goes toward your son's education, when you invest the rest in simple index funds month after month, year after year, well, those numbers start to add up. The Vanguard statements came quarterly, always addressed to S. Thompson, Thompson Cleaning Services. Mitchell never asked about my business. Never wondered how a small cleaning company could pay $300,000 in cash for medical school. He'd convinced himself that his success came from his own merit, with just a little help from his struggling father, who'd sacrificed everything. But Mitchell had no idea what I'd been hiding. After that dinner, I went home to my small apartment and did something I hadn't done in years. I spread all my financial documents across the kitchen table. 20 years of Vanguard statements, the investment portfolio I'd been building since Mitchell turned 18. Every month, without fail, I'd put money into the S&P 500, $500 when times were good, $200 when they were tight. Never missed a month. The latest statement showed $890,247.33, nearly $900,000, from a janitor who supposedly embarrassed his doctor's son. Next to the investment statements, I laid out the medical school receipts. University of Kansas School of Medicine, 7 years of payments, tuition, fees, room and board, medical equipment, every semester paid in full in cash 2 weeks before the deadline. Total, $319,847. Then there was the life insurance policy. Northwestern Mutual, $1.2 million. Death benefit. I'd been paying premiums for 15 years. Mitchell was the sole beneficiary. He didn't know about any of it. As far as Mitchell knew, his father was a poor janitor living paycheck to paycheck, someone who needed to be hidden from successful people, someone who might ask for money instead of giving it. But here's what would happen if I stayed silent. I'd show up to his Thanksgiving gala empty-handed. I'd watch him introduce me as the help to his colleagues. I'd smile and nod while he pretended our history together never happened. And then someday, I'd die, and he'd inherit everything. The investments, the life insurance, the business I'd built, all of it would go to a man who was ashamed of the person who created it. That felt wrong. I picked up my phone and scrolled through Mitchell's social media. Photos from medical conferences, pictures with other young doctors, Amanda at charity events. Always the same crowd. People who'd never worried about rent money, never worked weekends, never gone without so someone else could succeed. In every photo, Mitchell looked confident, successful, like he belonged in that world. But I knew the truth. Without my sacrifice, he'd be drowning in student debt like most of his colleagues. Without my 20-hour cleaning shifts, he'd never have had the freedom to focus on studies. Without my weekend dishwashing jobs, he wouldn't have had money for MCAT prep courses. I'd created his success. And now he wanted me to pay him to avoid being embarrassed by it. The worst part? I'd probably do it. Not because I had to. Not because $50,000 would break me. I could write that check tonight and barely notice the dent in my portfolio. I'd do it because I loved him, because losing my son forever felt worse than being humiliated. But sitting there at 3 a.m., surrounded by evidence of everything I'd built, I realized something. Love without respect isn't love at all. It's enabling. Mitchell needed to understand what he was throwing away. He needed to see the man behind the mop bucket. He needed to learn that success isn't just about what you accomplish. It's about honoring the people who made it possible. I opened my laptop and did something I'd never done before. I researched Kansas City General Hospital's board of directors, their financial structure, their municipal bond funding, their capital improvement projects. What I found made me smile for the first time in weeks. Sometimes the universe gives you exactly what you need, exactly when you need it. Mitchell wanted to play power games? He wanted to treat me like hired help? Fine, but he was about to learn that the help had been watching, learning, building, and some lessons can only be taught the hard way. The call came the next evening while I was reviewing hospital contracts. Dad, Mitchell's voice was crisp, professional, the tone he probably used with difficult patients. Hey son, got your message. Good, so you understand the situation. I set down my pen. 27 years of biting my tongue. 27 years of yes sir and whatever you think is best. Not tonight. Help me understand, I said. $50,000 for Thanksgiving dinner. It's not just dinner, Dad. This is a hospital board charity gala. Important people will be there. Department heads, major donors. This could determine my career path. And you need money from me because... Silence. Then a sigh. The kind of sigh you give when explaining something obvious to someone slow. Look, Dad, I appreciate everything you've done, but we're talking about my future here. I can't have... complications. Complications. You know what I mean. Actually, I don't. Explain it to me. Another pause. I could hear him moving around, probably pacing his apartment. the one I'd helped him furnish 3 years ago. My colleagues expect a certain standard. Amanda's family will be there. Board members who decide on promotions. I need to fit in. And I don't fit. Dad, come on. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Answer the question, Mitchell. Do I fit with your important people? Longer pause now. When he spoke again, his voice was colder. You're a janitor, Dad. These are surgeons, business leaders, people who write million-dollar checks. They're not going to relate to someone who does what you do. My situation. What if I told you they might relate better than you think? What does that mean? I looked at the hospital bond certificate on my desk. Series KC 2019, $500,000. Municipal healthcare funding. Issued to Stanley Thompson. Nothing. Just thinking out loud. Dad, look. I don't want to hurt your feelings. But this is reality. These people judge based on appearances, success, status. You showing up in your work clothes, talking about cleaning contracts, it doesn't help me. So you want me to pay you, to avoid embarrassing you. I want you to help me succeed. Isn't that what fathers do? 27 years of helping him succeed, $319,000 in medical school payments, 80-hour work weeks, missing sleep, missing meals, missing life, all so he could call me an embarrassment. How much do you make now, Mitchell? What? Your salary as a cardiac surgeon? How much? I don't see how that's relevant. Humor me. $380,000 base salary. And you need $50,000 from your janitor father. It's not about need, Dad. It's about presentation. Image. You wouldn't understand. I wouldn't understand. I looked at my investment statement again. $890,000. Built $50 at a time. While he slept through college, I was driving Uber at midnight. While he studied for the MCAT, I was cleaning office buildings at 4 a.m. You're right, son. I don't understand. Relief in his voice. I knew you'd get it. So can you wire the money by tomorrow? I need to make arrangements. Wire the money. The $50,000. We discussed this. Oh, we discussed it, but I never agreed to it. Silence. Then, what? I said I don't understand. I don't understand how my son became the kind of man who demands money from his father to avoid being embarrassed by him. Dad, don't be dramatic. I'm not being dramatic, Mitchell. I'm being clear. The answer is no. No? No money, no payment, no $50,000. His voice got sharp, angry. Then don't come. I wasn't planning to. Good, fine. That's probably better anyway. Probably is. You know what, Dad? This is exactly why I didn't want you there. This attitude, this bitterness. Bitterness. I'm not bitter, son. I'm disappointed. In what? In the man you've become. The line went quiet. I could hear him breathing. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Harder. You know what your problem is, Dad? You think the world owes you something because you worked hard, but everyone works hard. The difference is some people make something of themselves. Make something of themselves. And some people make something of other people, I said. What's that supposed to mean? Figure it out, Dr. Thompson. I hung up. The apartment felt very quiet. I sat there for a long time looking at the phone. Mitchell was right about one thing. I did think the world owed me something. It owed me a son who remembered where he came from. But maybe it was time to stop waiting for that debt to be paid. Maybe it was time to collect a different kind of payment. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in 15 years. I called in sick. Instead of heading to Kansas City General for my 6 a.m. shift, I drove to my storage unit on the east side of town. 20 years of business records, contracts, certificates, documents I'd kept but never really looked at. Thompson Cleaning Services had grown more than I'd realized. Started with just me and a mop bucket in 1997. Now we had 12 employees, contracts with 37 buildings across the metro area, medical facilities, office complexes, government buildings, including Kansas City General Hospital. I pulled out the contract file, signed in 2019, 5-year agreement. Thompson Cleaning Services provides full custodial and maintenance services for the main hospital building, the cardiac wing, and the administrative offices. Annual contract value, $480,000. But that wasn't the interesting part. The interesting part was buried in page 12 of the municipal funding documentation. When Kansas City General expanded their cardiac wing in 2019, they funded it through municipal bonds. Community investment bonds. Available to local business owners who met certain criteria. I'd met those criteria. The bond certificate was still in its original envelope. Series KC 2019, $500,000 investment. 10-year term. Current value, $637,000. Stanley Thompson wasn't just the janitor at Kansas City General. He was one of its major investors. I kept digging through the files. Found the letter from the hospital's CFO thanking me for my investment in the cardiac wing expansion. Found the invitation to the bond investor appreciation dinner I'd never attended. Found the quarterly reports showing how my investment had helped fund the exact department where Mitchell now worked. My son was performing heart surgery in a building I'd helped pay for. He was saving lives with equipment my investment had purchased. He was building his career in a facility that existed partly because his janitor father had believed in its mission. But Mitchell didn't know any of this. As far as he knew, I just pushed a mop around after hours. I looked at my watch. 2 p.m. In 6 hours, the hospital's evening shift would start. Dr. Patricia Williams would be in her office. The CFO who'd personally thanked me for my bond investment. She'd remember me. She'd remember the night shift janitor who'd helped fund her cardiac wing expansion. Tomorrow was Thanksgiving. Mitchell's big gala was tomorrow night. I had 18 hours to decide what to do with everything I'd discovered. 18 hours to decide whether to stay invisible or step into the light. I locked the storage unit and drove home. Made myself a sandwich. Sat at my kitchen table with all the documents spread out again. Investment statements, bond certificates, hospital contracts, medical school receipts, the story of 20 years told in numbers and signatures. Mitchell wanted to play games about status and embarrassment? Fine, but he'd chosen the wrong venue, and he'd definitely chosen the wrong opponent. Thanksgiving night, 7 p.m. The Kansas City General Hospital Foundation's annual charity gala was held in the hospital's new conference center, the one built with municipal bond funding, the one I'd helped pay for. I stood in the parking lot looking at the building through my car windshield. String lights wrapped around the entrance columns. Valet parking. Men in tuxedos and women in evening gowns walking through glass doors. I was wearing my work uniform. Navy blue shirt with Thompson Cleaning Services embroidered on the pocket. Work boots. The same clothes I'd worn to clean these floors for 5 years. My phone buzzed. Text from Mitchell. Just confirming you're not coming. Probably for the best. I turned off the phone and got out of the car. The young man at the valet stand looked confused when I walked past him. The woman at the registration table looked even more confused when I approached. "Excuse me, sir. This is a private event." "I know. I'm looking for Dr. Mitchell Thompson." She scanned her tablet. "Are you on the guest list?" "No, I'm his father." Her expression changed, softened slightly. "Oh, well, I'm sure we can. Let me just check with... Don't worry about it, I'll find him." The conference center was beautiful. High ceilings with exposed beams, round tables with white linens and centerpieces. Maybe 150 people mingling with cocktails. I spotted Mitchell immediately. He was near the bar talking to a group of people in expensive suits, Amanda beside him in a black dress that probably cost more than I made in a week. I walked over. The conversation stopped when they saw me coming. All 5 people in the group just stared. A man in work clothes approaching their cocktail party. "Dad?" Mitchell's voice was strangled. "What are you doing here?" "Happy Thanksgiving, son." The group was trying not to stare, but failing completely. A woman in pearls whispered something to the man next to her. "Dad, this isn't appropriate." "I know, but we need to talk." "Not here, not now." "Yes here, yes now." Mitchell grabbed my arm, started pulling me toward a corner, but I didn't move. "Actually, son, I think your friends might be interested in this conversation." His face went white. "Dad, please, don't do this." Amanda stepped forward. She was smiling, but it wasn't a friendly smile. "I'm sorry, but who are you exactly?" "I'm Stanley Thompson, Mitchell's father." "His father?" The woman in pearls looked confused. "But Mitchell, I thought you said your father—" "It's complicated," Mitchell finished quickly, but I wasn't going to let him off that easy. "Complicated how, son? Tell them about our complicated relationship." The entire group was staring now. People at nearby tables had stopped talking. Mitchell's voice got low, desperate. "Dad, please, not here. Tell them how you describe me to people, Mitchell. Tell them about your small, local cleaning business father. Dad, tell them why you didn't invite me to your graduation, why you introduced me differently to different people." The woman in pearls was looking back and forth between us. "Mitchell, what's he talking about?" Mitchell's composure was cracking. "Look, my father and I have different perspectives on things." "Perspectives?" I laughed. "Is that what we're calling it?" You embarrass me, okay? Mitchell's voice got loud, angry. There. Are you happy? You embarrass me? The silence in that corner of the room was deafening. But Mitchell wasn't done. His anger was taking over now, his control slipping. You know what your problem is, Dad? You think because you worked hard, you deserve something. But nobody cares how many toilets you scrubbed. Nobody cares about your sob story. The group around us was frozen. Amanda looked like she wanted to disappear. These people, Mitchell continued, gesturing around the room, they judge based on results, on success, on what you've accomplished. And what have you accomplished? You run a small cleaning company. You'll always be small time. He was breathing hard now, getting louder. You think showing up here in your work clothes proves some point. You think forcing me to acknowledge you in front of my colleagues makes you the hero. You're delusional. The woman in pearls looked genuinely uncomfortable. Mitchell, maybe. No, Linda, he needs to hear this. Dad, you want $50,000? Here's the truth. Your little cleaning business isn't worth $50,000. You're not successful. You're not impressive. You're a father who lives through his son's achievements. A father who lives through his son's achievements. I looked at him for a long moment. This man I'd raised. This person I'd sacrificed everything to create. You're done? I asked quietly. I'm done. And so are you. Security can escort you out. That's when I heard a familiar voice behind me. Excuse me? Stanley? I turned around.
Dr. Patricia Williams was walking toward us, the hospital's chief financial officer, tall, elegant, with silver hair and kind eyes. She was wearing a dark blue dress and carrying a leather portfolio. Dr. Williams, I said. Good evening. Mitchell looked confused. You two know each other? And that's when everything changed. Mitchell's face was flushed red, his careful composure completely gone. You know what your problem is, Dad? You think because you worked hard you deserve something. But nobody cares how many toilets you scrubbed. Nobody cares about your sob story. The group around us was frozen. Amanda looked like she wanted to disappear. These people, Mitchell continued, gesturing around the room, they judge based on results, on success, on what you've accomplished. And what have you accomplished? You're a janitor. You'll always be a janitor. He was breathing hard now, getting louder.
You think showing up here in your work clothes proves some point? You think embarrassing me in front of my colleagues makes you the hero? You're delusional. The woman in pearls looked genuinely uncomfortable. Mitchell, maybe? No, Linda. He needs to hear this. Dad, you want $50,000? Here's the truth. You're not worth $50,000. You're not worth $50. You're a failure who lives vicariously through his son's success. A failure. I looked at him for a long moment. This man I'd raised, this person I'd sacrificed everything to create. You're done? I asked quietly. I'm done, and so are you. Security can escort you out. That's when I heard a familiar voice behind me. Excuse me, Stanley? I turned around. Dr. Patricia Williams was walking toward us, the hospital's chief financial officer, tall, elegant, with silver hair and kind eyes. She was wearing a dark blue dress and carrying a leather portfolio. Dr. Williams, I said. Good evening. Mitchell looked confused. You two know each other? Dr. Williams smiled at me. Oh, Stanley and I go way back. Don't we, Stanley? A few years now, I agreed. She turned to Mitchell. You must be Mitchell. Your father talks about you all the time during our early morning meetings. Meetings? Mitchell's voice was uncertain. Oh, yes. Stanley and I often cross paths when I'm working late and he's starting his shift. Such a dedicated man. Always asking about the hospital's financial health, our expansion plans. I could see the wheels turning in Mitchell's head, but he hadn't figured it out yet. Dr. Williams opened her portfolio. In fact, Stanley, I'm glad you're here. I've been meaning to give you the latest quarterly report on your investment. The word investment hit the group like a bomb. Investment? Amanda's voice was barely a whisper. Dr. Williams pulled out a document. Your municipal bond investment in our cardiac wing expansion, Series KC 2019. Current value is, $637,000. Complete silence. $637,000, she repeated. Quite a return on your original $500,000 investment, wouldn't you say? Mitchell was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. $500,000? Oh my, Dr. Williams continued, still smiling. Did Stanley never mention? He's one of our major investors. When we needed funding for the cardiac wing expansion, Stanley stepped up in a big way. She turned to the group. You know, it's funny.
People see Stanley in his work clothes and assume he's just a janitor. But Stanley Thompson is one of the most successful businessmen in Kansas City. The woman in pearls, Linda, was looking at me differently now. Businessman? Thompson Cleaning Services, Dr. Williams explained. 37 commercial contracts across the metro area. Annual revenue of...
What was it last year, Stanley? Just over $2 million. 2.3, I said quietly. Mitchell sat down in the nearest chair. Hard. Dr. Williams wasn't finished. And of course, there's Stanley's investment portfolio. I happened to see his Vanguard statement last month when we were reviewing the bond documentation. 890,000? Something like that? Something like that, I confirmed. Amanda was gripping Mitchell's shoulder. Mitchell, did you know any of this? Before he could answer, Dr. Williams addressed the group again. You know what I admire most about Stanley? He's never asked for recognition. When we held the Bond Investor Appreciation Dinner last year, he didn't attend. When the hospital board wanted to put his name on a plaque in the cardiac wing, he declined. She looked at me fondly. He just quietly goes about his business, building his company, taking care of his investments, making sure his son could graduate medical school debt-free. The words debt-free made Linda's eyes widen. Debt-free? Dr. Williams nodded. Oh yes, Stanley paid Mitchell's entire medical school tuition. University of Kansas, wasn't it? 319,000? Something enormous like that. Paid it in cash. Every semester. Mitchell was staring at the floor now, his face completely drained of color. You know, Dr. Williams continued, I've seen a lot of generous parents over the years, but Stanley's sacrifice was extraordinary. Working multiple jobs, building his business, investing every spare dollar. She paused, looking around the group. Also, his son could become a doctor without the burden of student loans that cripple most young physicians. The silence was deafening. Dr. Williams smiled at me again. Stanley, I should let you get back to your evening, but I did want to mention, the board approved your proposal for the children's wing expansion bonds. 500,000 again, if you're still interested.
I'm interested, I said. Wonderful. I'll have the documents prepared next week. She turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Mitchell? You should be very proud of your father. Not many sons are lucky enough to have someone who believes in them so completely. She walked away, leaving us in absolute silence. I looked at the group of people who had just witnessed everything. Their expressions had changed completely. Where there had been pity and embarrassment, now there was something else. Respect. Linda spoke first. Stanley, I had no idea. I'm Linda Morrison. I serve on the hospital board. Nice to meet you, Linda. A man in a navy suit stepped forward. James Anderson, board chairman. Dr. Williams is right. We've been trying to recognize your contributions for years. Recognition isn't necessary. It is to us, James said firmly. He looked at Mitchell, who was still sitting in the chair, staring at nothing. Your son is extremely fortunate, James continued.
Most young doctors start their careers with enormous debt. It shapes their entire lives. The fact that Mitchell could focus purely on medicine, without financial stress, that's an incredible gift. I nodded. It was my pleasure. Amanda finally found her voice. Mitchell, why didn't you tell me about any of this? Mitchell looked up at her, then at me. His eyes were red. Because I didn't know. You didn't know? Linda's voice was sharp. I knew he paid for medical school, but I thought he'd taken out loans against his house or something. I didn't know about the business, the investments, any of it. James Anderson looked confused. But surely you knew about the bond investment. Your father helped build the department where you work. Mitchell shook his head. He never told me. And you never asked? Linda's tone was getting colder. The group was starting to understand what had really happened here. A son so ashamed of his father that he'd never bothered to learn who his father really was. A young doctor so focused on impressing strangers that he'd completely dismissed the man who'd made his success possible. Amanda was looking at Mitchell like she'd never seen him before. You told these people your father was dead. Amanda, you told me he was dead. The man in the navy suit, James, looked disgusted. You told people your father was dead? Mitchell started to stand up, but I put my hand on his shoulder. Sit down, son, we're not finished yet. I looked around at the faces watching us. Important people, powerful people. The same people Mitchell had been so desperate to impress. They weren't impressed anymore. They were horrified, and I still had one more card to play. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a manila envelope. Mitchell, there's something else we need to discuss. His voice was barely audible. What? Your future. I opened the envelope and pulled out 3 documents, set them on the cocktail table where everyone could see. This is a life insurance policy, Northwestern Mutual, $1.2 million, death benefit. The group leaned in slightly. Amanda's eyes were wide. I've been paying premiums for 15 years. You've been the sole beneficiary since you turned 18. I placed my finger on the beneficiary section. Clear as day. Mitchell Thompson's son. But here's the thing about life insurance, Mitchell. The policyholder can change the beneficiary at any time. I pulled out a pen. What are you doing? Mitchell's voice was panicked. Making a change. I crossed out Mitchell's name and wrote Kansas City General Hospital Foundation, Cardiac Wing Scholarship Fund. Dad, no, you can't. I can, and I am. James Anderson was reading over my shoulder. A scholarship fund? For working-class students who want to pursue medicine. Kids whose parents clean offices and drive Uber to pay for their education. I signed the change and dated it. November 28th, 2024. Witnessed by... I looked at Linda. Would you mind? She took the pen without hesitation and signed her name. Linda Morrison, Hospital Board Member, she wrote. James signed next. James Anderson, Board Chairman. Mitchell was staring at the document. Dad, please, think about what you're doing. I have thought about it, for weeks. I pulled out the second document. This is my will, updated yesterday. You want to know what you're inheriting now, Mitchell? I showed him the first page. Nothing. Nothing. The investment portfolio goes to the scholarship fund. The business goes to my employees. The house goes to charity. Amanda was gripping the table. Mitchell, say something. But Mitchell was staring at the third document I'd placed on the table. What's that one? This one's my favorite, I said, picking it up. It's a life insurance policy that I took out on you, Mitchell. His face went white. On me? $500,000. I'm the beneficiary. I've been paying the premiums for 6 years. The group was completely silent. You see, when you graduate medical school debt-free, when someone else builds your foundation for success, you become a very good insurance risk. Young doctor, healthy lifestyle, excellent income potential. Mitchell's voice was shaking. You took out life insurance on me? I wanted to make sure my investment was protected. I held up the policy so everyone could see it. But here's what's interesting, son. I don't need this anymore. My investment in you hasn't paid off the way I hoped. I slowly tore the policy in half. Dad, what are you... I tore it again and again. Let the pieces fall. Let the pieces fall on the table like confetti. There goes your $500,000 life insurance policy, Mitchell. Amanda made a small, gasping sound. But don't worry, I continued. I'm sure your new friends here will take care of you if anything happens. I looked around the group. Their faces showed a mixture of shock and disgust. These were Mitchell's colleagues, the people he'd been so desperate to impress. Linda Morrison spoke first. Mitchell, I have to ask, did you really tell people your father was dead? It was complicated. It's a simple question, James Anderson said. Yes or no? Mitchell looked at the floor. Yes. For how long? Since medical school. Amanda stepped back from him. You've been lying to me for 2 years? Amanda, please. Your father has been supporting your entire life and you told me he was dead? Linda was shaking her head. I've seen a lot of ungrateful children in my time, but this... This is disgusting, James finished. Stanley, I owe you an apology. If we'd known... You couldn't have known, I said. Mitchell made sure of that. I gathered up the torn insurance policy pieces and put them back in the envelope. There's one more thing, son. Mitchell looked up at me with desperate eyes. The hospital cleaning contract. Thompson Cleaning Services has been providing custodial services here for 5 years. $480,000 annually. Dr. Williams had mentioned this earlier, but now I had their full attention. That contract comes up for renewal next month. Mitchell's voice was barely a whisper. Dad, I've decided not to renew it. James looked confused. Why not? You do excellent work. Because I don't want my son working in a building I'm responsible for maintaining. It seems inappropriate. Given his feelings about my profession. The weight of that statement settled over the group. Mitchell would be working in a hospital where his father was no longer welcome, where everyone would know the story of the ungrateful son and the father he disowned. Furthermore, I continued, I'll be recommending that my commercial cleaning contracts with other medical facilities in the city be transitioned to my competitors. Dad, you can't. I can, and I will. It seems my presence in your professional world causes you embarrassment. I'm removing that problem. Linda was looking at Mitchell with undisguised contempt. Do you understand what your father is doing? He's destroying his business, Mitchell said. No, I corrected. I'm protecting my dignity. Thompson Cleaning Services will be just fine. We have plenty of other contracts, office buildings, government facilities, places where my work is valued. I looked directly at Mitchell. Places where I won't risk running into my son who's ashamed of me. Amanda pulled off her engagement ring and set it on the table. I can't marry someone who lies about their family, she said quietly. Amanda, please. Your father sacrificed everything for you. Everything. And you repaid him by pretending he didn't exist. She looked at me. Stanley, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I was part of this. You didn't know, I said gently. I should have asked more questions. I should have. It's not your fault, Amanda. James Anderson pulled out his business card. Stanley, I'd like to discuss expanding your role with the hospital foundation. We need board members who understand real sacrifice. I'll consider it. Linda did the same. And I'd like to talk about funding opportunities for your scholarship program. I pocketed both cards. Mitchell was sitting alone now. Amanda had walked away. The group of colleagues he'd been trying to impress were looking at him like he was a stranger. Dad, he said quietly, I'm sorry. I know you are, son. Can we fix this? I looked at him for a long moment. This man I'd raised. This person I'd sacrificed everything to create. I don't know, Mitchell. I honestly don't know. I picked up my envelope and turned to leave. Dad, wait. I stopped. What do I do now? You learn, I said without turning around. You learn what it means to earn respect instead of demanding it. You learn what it means to honor the people who built your foundation. I started walking away. And if you're very lucky, I called back, you learn it's not too late to become the man I thought I was raising. I walked through the gala crowd toward the exit. People moved aside, watching me pass. Some of them had witnessed the confrontation. Others had heard pieces of it. By tomorrow, everyone in Kansas City's medical community would know the story of Dr. Mitchell Thompson and his father, the janitor who owned hospital bonds, the businessman who'd paid for medical school, the father who'd been declared dead by his own son. At the valet stand, the young man looked at me differently now. Can I get your car, sir? No, thanks. I walked. I stepped out into the November air and took a deep breath. For the first time in 27 years, I felt free. The story spread faster than I expected. By Monday morning, my phone was ringing constantly. Local news stations, hospital administrators, other business owners who'd heard about the gala confrontation. But the call that mattered came Tuesday afternoon. Thompson Cleaning Services, this is Stanley. Stanley, this is Dr. Patricia Williams. Hello, Dr. Williams. I wanted to give you an update on the scholarship fund. Since Saturday night, we've received over $40,000 in donations. People want to contribute to something that honors working-class sacrifice. $40,000 in 3 days. That's wonderful. There's more. The hospital board met yesterday. They want to name the Cardiac Wing Scholarship Program after you. The Stanley Thompson Foundation for Medical Education. I sat down hard in my office chair. That's very generous. Stanley, you need to understand something. What happened Saturday night, it's changed how people think about family sacrifice, about supporting the people who support us. How is Mitchell handling it? Long pause. He's struggling. The story has gotten around the hospital. People are talking. I'd expected this. Medical communities are small. Gossip travels fast. Is he in trouble professionally? Not formally, but his colleagues, they're seeing him differently now. Some of the senior physicians are questioning his character. I felt a pang of something. Not quite regret, but sadness. Dr. Williams, I don't want his career destroyed. I know you don't. But actions have consequences, Stanley. What he did, it reflects on his judgment, his values. After I hung up, I sat in my office for a long time. Thompson Cleaning Services was busier than ever. Word had gotten out about our work ethic, our reliability. New contracts were coming in weekly. But success felt hollow when your son wasn't speaking to you. The next call came Wednesday morning. Dad? Mitchell's voice was barely recognizable. Hoarse, tired. Hello, son. Can we talk? In person? Where? I don't know. Somewhere private, away from everything. We met at Luce Park. The same place I'd brought him as a kid to feed ducks and play on the playground. It was cold for late November, but Mitchell was sitting on our old bench when I arrived. He looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes. His usually perfect hair was messy. "Dad, Just listen first," I said, sitting down beside him. He nodded. "I didn't humiliate you to be cruel, Mitchell. I did it because you needed to understand the cost of shame." "I know." "Do you? Do you really know?" He was quiet for a long time. "Amanda broke up with me," he said finally.
"I'm sorry." "No, you're not." He was right. I wasn't sorry about Amanda. She was part of the problem. "The hospital board is reviewing my department promotion," he continued. "I heard. Some of the senior physicians won't work with me anymore. They say they can't trust someone who would disown their family." I didn't say anything. "Dr. Peterson told me yesterday that character matters more than surgical skills, that a man who would lie about his father's death might lie about other things." This was harder to hear than I'd expected. "Are they right, Dad? Am I that person?" I looked at my son, really looked at him. He was 31 years old, but sitting there on that bench, he looked like the 11-year-old boy who'd cried when his mother died. "I don't know, Mitchell. Are you? I used to think I was a good person. I saved lives. I worked hard. I thought that was enough. It's not enough. I know that now."
We sat in silence for a while, watching joggers go by, listening to traffic in the distance. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Why didn't you ever tell me about the money, the investments, the business success?" I'd been expecting this question, because I wanted you to respect me for who I was, not what I had. "But if you'd known, you might have treated me better because I was wealthy. That's not respect, Mitchell. That's fear." He nodded slowly. "I wanted my son to be proud of his father, the janitor, the man who worked hard and sacrificed everything. I didn't need him to be impressed by his father, the investor." "I was proud of you," he said quietly. "No, you were grateful. There's a difference." Another long silence. "What happens now?" he asked. "That's up to you." "What do you mean?" "You have a choice, son. You can spend the rest of your life trying to rebuild your reputation, proving to people that you're not the man who disowned his father." I stood up and looked down at him. "Or you can become someone better, someone who earns respect through character instead of demanding it through status." "How do I do that?" "The same way I built everything I have, one day at a time, one choice at a time, one relationship at a time." I started walking away. "Dad, wait." I turned back. Do you think there's a chance for us, someday?" I looked at this man I'd raised, this person who'd broken my heart and then possibly started to understand why. "Ask me in a year, Mitchell, after you've had time to figure out who you really are." "A year? Give yourself time to become someone worth being proud of. Then we'll talk." I walked back to my car, leaving him sitting on that bench. In my rearview mirror, I could see him still sitting there as I drove away, alone with his choices, alone with his consequences, alone with the chance to become better. 6 months later, I was reviewing applications for the Stanley Thompson Foundation's first scholarship recipients. 12 students, all from working-class families, all with parents who'd sacrificed everything to support their children's medical school dreams. The first recipient was Maria Santos. Her mother cleaned office buildings just like I had. Her father drove for a delivery company. Maria had worked 2 jobs through college to help pay for her MCAT prep courses. The second was James Wilson, Jr. His father was a mechanic. His mother worked in a hospital cafeteria. James had never expected to afford medical school until he heard about our scholarship program. Each application told a story I recognized. Families stretching every dollar, parents working multiple jobs, children who understood the weight of sacrifice. These students would graduate debt-free, just like Mitchell had. But they would also graduate with something Mitchell had lost along the way: respect for the people who'd made their success possible. My phone rang. It was Dr. Williams. "Stanley, I have news about Mitchell." "I'm listening." "He's been volunteering at the free clinic downtown 3 nights a week, working with uninsured patients." "That's good to hear." "He's also been attending board meetings for the Foundation Scholarship Program. He wants to help interview candidates." I set down the application I was reading. "What do you think?" "I think he's trying to understand something, about service, about giving back to the community that supported him." "Has he said anything? About us?" "He asks about you, often, but he hasn't tried to contact you directly." This surprised me. I'd expected Mitchell to call within weeks, trying to rebuild our relationship on his timeline. "He told me something interesting last week," Dr. Williams continued. What's that? He said he's learning the difference between being successful and being worthy of success. I felt something shift in my chest, something that might have been hope. How's his work at the hospital? Excellent. Better than ever, actually. His relationships with colleagues have improved. He's more humble, more collaborative. We talked for a few more minutes, then hung up. I went back to reading scholarship applications, but my mind kept drifting to Mitchell, to the son I'd raised and lost, and maybe possibly might find again. That evening I was cleaning up my home office when I found something tucked under a stack of old medical school receipts. A card, hand-drawn, crayon on construction paper. Happy Father's Day, Dad. You're the best dad in the world. Love, Mitchell. He'd made it when he was 8 years old, 23 years ago. I'd kept it all this time. I looked at that card for a long time, remembering the little boy who'd been so proud of his father, the child who'd bragged to his friends about his dad's important job keeping buildings clean and safe. Somewhere along the way, that little boy had learned to be ashamed. But maybe, just maybe, the man could learn to be proud again. My phone buzzed with a text message, unknown number. Dad, this is Mitchell. I know you said to wait a year, but I wanted you to know something. I'm learning. About sacrifice, about respect, about the difference between earning something and being given something. I'm not ready yet, but I'm trying to become someone you could be proud of again. I love you. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I typed back, I've always been proud of you, son, even when I was disappointed in your choices. Keep learning, keep growing. When you're ready, I'll be here. I sent the message and put my phone away. Outside my window, Kansas City was settling into evening. Lights coming on in office buildings, people heading home from work, families gathering around dinner tables. Somewhere out there, my son was learning what it meant to be a man worth respecting. And for the first time in months, I believed he might actually figure it out. The Stanley Thompson Foundation would help dozens of students over the years, young people who understood the value of sacrifice, who honored the parents who'd made their dreams possible. But the most important lesson the foundation taught might be this. It's never too late to become the person you were meant to be, even if it takes losing everything to find your way back. If you're watching this, I hope you'll think about the people who've sacrificed for your success, and I hope you'll honor them while you still can. Sometimes the strongest lesson is also the hardest one, but it's always worth learning.